Here we are at question 5 of LSAT PrepTest number 157's second section, the logical reasoning first section. As we read question 5 with our highlight tool, which one of the following most accurately expresses the conclusion drawn in the columnist argument? So whenever we are asked explicitly for the conclusion, we just have to do what we normally do. Read the paragraph, go a little bit more deliberately because the task of identifying the conclusion indicates that there might be some sort of kind of subtle brick in there, but we're still going to determine what the main idea is of this columnist, and we're going to highlight that conclusion before cross-checking the answer choices. So, reading from the top of the columnist, many people with access to the internet express a longing for emotional connection to a global human community. Well, this is just a statement of fact. It's saying that they do express. That is not going to be a conclusion. Next, we've got this longing often leads them to use the internet to learn about other cultures. Well, be careful because this often, folks certainly do mistake that as a qualifier, but it's just saying that this longing very frequently leads them to use the internet to learn about other cultures. So that again is just a statement of fact. It is not a subjective opinion. So that too is not our conclusion. Then we read the next sentence. However, learning about other cultures probably, and there's our qualifier that often indicates a subjective opinion, which functions most frequently as our conclusion. Learning about other cultures probably will not satisfy their longing, for the internet is utilized primarily for acquiring information rather than developing feelings of interconnectedness. So the word for actually indicates the support for what ends up being our main conclusion. This clause about learning about other cultures probably will not satisfy the longing of these people who want emotional connection to a global human community. So now that we've got that highlighted, we may not have to highlight as much for a conclusion task because if it's just not the highlight, we know it's wrong. You can still use the highlighter tool if you like, just to be absolutely clear. So starting with choice A, it is common for people who have access to the internet to express a longing for emotional connection to an international human community. This is just a fact. This is like the first fact of the columnist statements. It's not our conclusion. We should be able to eliminate A immediately. Next, choice B. The longing for emotional connection to a global human community frequently leads people to use the internet in order to acquire information about other cultures. Well, I promise I didn't just read frequently when I replaced often, but that's what this choice did. And of course, choice B is this second sentence paraphrase, not our conclusion. We'll scroll down and frame up everything else because we know the first two answer choices are definitively wrong. And we read choice C. People who have access to the internet tend to use it primarily for acquiring information and only secondarily for developing feelings of interconnectedness. Well, we don't actually discuss a secondarily statement at all in our conclusion. So I might grab that because we say it's about this longing not being satisfied as opposed to comparing the primary usage versus a secondary usage. And they don't actually say that it's a secondary usage anyway in this final sentence, but regardless of how you break it down, choice C hopefully is rather clearly incorrect. Then choice D, for people desiring connection to a global human community, learning about other cultures through the internet probably will not provide emotional connection to those cultures. Well, that's really what we were looking for. We're looking for this probably you don't get that uh, emotional connection that was sought. We can proactively select D as matching a combination of the statements and our highlighted sentence, hopefully with no problems. Then choice E, when people long for connection to a global human community, they tend to engage in behavior that results in the acquisition of knowledge about other cultures, but rarely produces genuine emotional connection to those cultures. Well, we've got to be careful here because there's this new variable introduced of genuine emotional connection to those cultures, where we've got a longing for emotional connection, but we don't actually talk about what a genuine emotional connection would be. And we don't know that these people generally tend to engage in these behaviors. We don't know the proportions of the population. So for a couple of reasons, we can eliminate choice E, but choice B should have pretty much jumped off the screen as matching our conclusion highlight proactively.